Earlier, US President Barack Obama is racing against the clock to raise the country's debt ceiling by August the 2nd. For more, Washington correspondent Craig McMurtrie joins us now. Craig, what's the president's latest proposal?
Jane, he's calling for a $4 trillion deal. This is the so-called grand bargain. It involves deep spending cuts, but it also involves increasing some revenues by eliminating tax breaks. And that's the big problem. Republicans, particularly Tea Party-backed Republicans, are resistant to anything that smacks of a tax increase. They are saying the problem is spending. It's not on the revenue side. So they are proposing $2.4 trillion in cuts and what they're describing as a balanced budget amendment, changing the Constitution to require the federal government to always spend what it brings in to balance the books. Barack Obama has said that they don't need to change the Constitution to do their jobs. The White House and Senate Democrats are opposed to that. So we're stuck where we were pretty much a few days ago. Despite days of talks, there is no sign of a breakthrough. The president has said that he wants a plan from congressional leaders this weekend because they're running out of time. That August 2 deadline is approaching, and there's real concern that as it gets closer, the markets will get more skittish unless they see some sign that Washington is capable of coming up with a political deal to lift the debt ceiling, but also address the deficit problem.
Well, markets are already pretty jittery, you could argue. What is the president going to do? Where does he go from here?
Well, that's far from clear. Probably the most likely outcome right now is perhaps some sort of short-term deal that allows the debt ceiling to be lifted so that there's no risk of a US default, but perhaps puts off the big decisions about cutting spending for some months. Certainly this issue is bound to be one of the big issues as we approach the 2012 election next year, but it's a long way to go yet. And the problem is, if with both sides thinking that they can successfully blame the other, there's no incentive to really for them to come together and actually come up with a solution. The only thing that can be said about that is right now it appears that political leaders on both sides are working pretty hard now to avoid any suggestion of that debt ceiling not being lifted by the US Treasury's deadline of August the 2nd.
And Craig, we were just hearing from Philip Williams earlier that Les Hinton from Dow Jones has resigned, again part of the news hacking saga. I wonder, have there been any further developments on your side of the Atlantic?
No, that news about Les Hinton, publisher of the Wall Street Journal, going, he was, of course, responsible for News of the World when the worst of the hacking allegations were taking place. That's the biggest news that's broken today. There have been protests outside Rupert Murdoch's apartment in New York. The FBI has confirmed, we know this from yesterday, that they have opened an inquiry, though not a formal investigation yet. There's been some commentary here in the US that Rupert Murdoch could face ruin in America if the claims that 9/11 victims and their families, that their phone records were hacked into, or that there was an attempt made by News of the World to hack into their phone records, if that is substantiated, the suggestion is that this would be a ruinous situation for Rupert Murdoch. That's certainly saying a lot, because right now there is no evidence to support that. Congressmen have written to the Justice Department demanding an investigation, really based on a newspaper report out of Britain. But certainly if that investigation turns up anything, then the situation for Rupert Murdoch and News Corporation in America will deteriorate substantially.
Craig McMurtrie in Washington, many thanks.
Okay.